Afternoon. We're back for round 2. How are you, Sarah?
Hola, hola a todos. Estamos de vuelta para el round número 2. Estoy muy bien. ¿Cómo está?
Muy bien, gracias. Okay, so we got 2 fun things to talk about in our talk today. And I'm kind of waiting for people to get here so that they can hear what we are going to say. Okay, we got people joining. Wonderful. Hello and good afternoon. I'm so glad that you're here. The topic we were going to cover initially is just some reflection on what it's been like to have DACA for 10 years. And some of that is a little bit of frustration, I'm sure, for a lot of people. But what are your thoughts, Sarah? Before this was just something like President Obama basically made this up out of thin air. This was nothing that existed before. And here we are 10 years later, and we're not processing, our government is not processing new DACA applications. It's receiving them, but it's not processing them because of federal litigation over whether DACA is even legal, whether it was an okay thing to do. And I think that the impact is huge because we have people in the firm, we have several people in the firm, in fact, who either had DACA initially and then now have green cards or US citizens. Or we have a couple folks who are near and dear to our hearts who currently have DACA. And if it weren't for this piece of paper, they wouldn't be able to legally work in the firm. So DACA makes a huge difference. And, after you translate this, Sarah, I want to let our audience who perhaps doesn't know what DACA is, I want to educate them a little bit about what it is and why it matters. Because if you don't have a family member who's undocumented, maybe you don't even know what the significance is.
Claro que sí. Entonces, hoy queremos abordar dos temas. Inicialmente queríamos iniciar con una reflexión sobre los 10 años de DACA. Se están cumpliendo 10 años de que el presidente Obama básicamente creó este programa de la nada. No existía nada como él. Y bueno, aunque actualmente, si saben un poquito sobre eso, el gobierno está recibiendo las aplicaciones de DACA, no las está procesando. Entonces estamos en un lugar un poquito de frustración por lo que ha pasado y por las cosas que no se han movido en 10 años. Sin embargo, aún así queremos hablar de la importancia que tuvo DACA. Y nada más empezando por nosotros, por la firma, en el equipo tenemos muchas personas muy valiosas que empezaron con DACA y eventualmente tuvieron su residencia y hasta su ciudadanía, y quienes actualmente todavía utilizan su DACA o el permiso que tienen para trabajar legalmente en la firma. Entonces, sí, vamos a hablar un poquito de su importancia, porque además, si a lo mejor tú no tienes familiares indocumentados, no tienes idea del impacto, pero vamos a estar comentando y celebrando 10 años de DACA.
Yes. Okay. So for people who don't know, DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA. Deferred action is a legal term that basically means we're not going to do anything. We're going to defer, we're going to wait to take action. For childhood arrivals, we're going to wait and not take any action on people who came to the United States as children. Children is kind of broadly construed in immigration law. Usually it means that if you are under the age of 21, but in this specific instance, it's if you're under the age of, I think it's 16, you need to be here before you're 16. So it's confusing because in every area in immigration law, child can sometimes mean different things. But in any event, this is for folks who before they had their 16th birthday, they came to the United States. So you can imagine this isn't just like, going for a car ride with friends and crossing into the US and staying. This is an adult has brought a child into the United States. Many children grew up here, and other than, if you asked to see their passport, you wouldn't know that they were or weren't a US citizen. They are educated here. They have American culture, norms. They love Converse sneakers just like the rest of us. They think Michael Jordan's amazing, and they grew up pledging allegiance to the US flag every single day as little boys and girls in their schools. The harsh reality, however, is that once they graduated high school and wanted to go to college, many of them realized pre-DACA that they didn't have a social security number. And so the path to higher education, which for so many U.S. Employees and employers is extremely important. Higher education, basically a high school diploma doesn't get you far in the U.S. For a lot of specific job types. Instead, now the norm is to get a college degree. You can't go to college without a social security number. It simply cannot be done. So what ends up happening is we had a lot of folks, and Itzel in our office is one of those people who she graduated a year early from high school, the valedictorian of her class, number one in her class, ready to go take her undergraduate degree by storm, and found that she could not go to college. So here she had graduated early, couldn't work, couldn't go to college. What is she to do? Insert at the same time DACA. And because of DACA, which provides, you apply, you prove that you came to the US before you were 16, and all of these other things. And you also can't really have any significant criminal history. It's called a significant misdemeanor. You can't have a significant misdemeanor, which varies from state to state what that means, but you really have to be pretty squeaky clean or lead a boring life is what I like to joke about. But with that, you are issued, you raise your hand and you say, I'm undocumented in the United States, which is a very scary thing to do, especially for a new program, like made up out of nowhere. I'm here. Here's my address. Here's my mom and dad's name. Here's my siblings. Here's my addresses for the past 5 years. Here are all my school records. I mean, this is a deep dive exam into all of your personal history. Here's my taxes that I filed if I was working. And in exchange, if you pass the test, essentially, you are given a social security number and a little work permit that says you have deferred action. You can't leave. You can't come and go. You're stuck here in the U.S., which is a good thing. Like a lot of people want to be able to be in the U.S., but if their mom or dad were deported and they're still here because they have DACA, they cannot go see mom and dad. So it becomes a very isolating lifestyle, especially when, as we don't know if DACA is truly here to stay because litigation is still going on about it. So it's a long explanation. Sarah, I know you know a whole lot about DACA. So your explanation and your words will be wonderful, I know. But DACA is really, really important. It had been created, the way we got to DACA was Senator Reid out of Nevada, and that's where I was at and going to law school while all this was going on, was really campaigning for what they called the DREAM Act, because kids who are brought to the US are often called dreamers. I'm getting chills because I'm like going back in time and remembering everyone believing that this might come true, that we might actually allow for kids who were brought to the US, raised here, have no criminal history, to be put on a path to a green card, kind of like amnesty. And we really thought that it was going to work, and it didn't. It did not work. Congress didn't pass the bill. So what President Obama did as kind of an alternative was to create the DACA program. And that's what we have today, only for people who got in during the time that it was available. And I think that's what's so important for immigration law in general, is it might be here today, but it's not a guarantee for it to be here tomorrow.
Ok, entonces, bueno, vamos a explicar un poquito de qué significa DACA. Sus siglas son DACA y quiere decir Deferred Action, acción diferida para Childhood Arrival, para llegadas de niños. Entonces, básicamente, lo que sucedió es que muchos jóvenes que terminaban lo que llamaríamos la escuela preparatoria, que habían sido traídos en su niñez. La niñez, en este caso específico, se refería a antes de los 16 años. En otras partes de la ley es antes de los 18, en otras partes de la ley es antes de los 21. Entonces, en este caso en específico, era si tú habías llegado a los Estados Unidos antes de tu cumpleaños número 16, pues probablemente habías crecido aquí, habías amado los sneakers Converse, a Michael Jordan, entonces tenías toda esta cultura estadounidense, tus valores, tu escuela, tu idioma, pero muchas personas cuando llegaban a el término de su preparatoria, se daban cuenta que no tenían el documento para ir a la universidad, que es pues básicamente un requisito que aquí en los Estados Unidos se aplica para algunos campos laborales, ¿no? Entonces no puedes ir muy lejos con un diploma de la preparatoria, necesitas ir al colegio, pero muchos de ellos no sabían siquiera que estaban en esta situación, que, tenían un seguro, que no tenían un seguro social. Por ejemplo, en el equipo Itzel, ella se graduó un año antes, es decir, fue muy estudiosa, fue la primera de su clase, fue la valedictorian, lo que se llama como el mejor alumno, el alumno destacado, y se dio cuenta que no podía ir al colegio. Entonces estaba en este limbo de no poder estudiar más adelante, no poder trabajar, pues, ¿qué es lo que se supone que iba a hacer? Entonces, esta situación era el caso de muchas personas y lo que sucedió con eso es que el senador Reid en Nevada, esa parte del tiempo le tocó a la abogada, estaba o quería impulsar lo que se llama el Dreamers Act, el acto de los soñadores, así se les llama a las personas que llegaron a esa edad a este país. Y pues básicamente todas las personas creían que esto iba a ser como un tipo de amnistía que iba a poner a estas personas en el camino a la residencia. Desafortunadamente eso no pasó, no se llegó a eso. Y lo que hizo el presidente Obama fue básicamente poner como un símil, que es este DACA, que si bien no se ha concretado y de hecho al día de hoy no se aceptan nuevas solicitudes, pues básicamente es algo que vemos mucho en la ley de inmigración, es decir, el alivio que hoy está presente puede mañana no serlo y no sabemos si DACA está aquí para quedarse, todavía se está litigando al respecto. Y bueno, al final este tipo de beneficio, cuando puedes probar que no tienes récord criminal, no tienes ningún misdemeanor, ningún cargo significativo, que fuiste una buena persona, una persona aburrida, dice la abogada, que llegaste aquí y pones tu solicitud, entonces ellos te pueden dar un seguro social y un permiso para trabajar o un permiso para estar aquí. Hacer este proceso en sí es muy aterrador porque, sobre todo para un programa que era nuevo, porque tenías que básicamente decirle a inmigración, aquí estoy yo, aquí están mis papás, esta es mi dirección, estos son mis récords de la escuela, aquí he vivido, estos son los taxes que he hecho. Básicamente tenías que darle a inmigración todo y esperar que ellos te aprobaran. Entonces, esto es algo muy difícil de hacer, sobre todo por lo que vivimos antes. Y entonces, si ya te aprobaban, te daban esto. Desafortunadamente este proceso resultó ser bueno porque claro, pueden estar aquí legalmente, pero resultó ser muy solitario, ya que llegamos a ver casos donde los padres de una persona con DACA fueron deportados y quedaban separados, la familia quedaba separada. La persona con DACA quedaba aquí en los Estados Unidos y los padres regresaban a México, Guatemala, y entonces teníamos una separación familiar.
Okay, amazing job, Sarah. You are so amazing. Your memory is incredible. Okay, so as we reflect on where we are 10 years later, I think the frustrating thing is that we haven't made any progress. We had something that it seemed great 10 years ago. It is great. It's benefited lots and lots of people. But there's a song, Adele's song called Go Easy on Me. And every time I listen to that song, I think of all the people who were brought here as children. And they don't belong anywhere. You know, imagine not belonging and feeling welcomed somewhere. So what my hope is that someday we see this actually transform into a path to a green card. And we are seeing some progress being made in immigration news and in immigration law. It's in the works. And it's one of those things where as an immigration advocate, you want to believe that it's going to keep going, but you've seen so much fruit die on the vine that you start to lose hope. I can only imagine if I were on the receiving end and I were an immigrant, what that would be like. So this is certainly not me saying it's hard for me to see this. I can only imagine it would be hard for someone to live this. But here's what my hope is we have what's called, what is it called, Sarah? Let's pull it up. I closed out of all my apps so that I would make sure that I had everything. but it's called the American Families United Act, okay? The American Families United Act is a bill that's kind of working its way through our congressional process. The bill gets proposed, people talk about it, they make adjustments, they add in stuff that they hope will get slid along and get passed. And then the other side of whether it's Congress or senators, then they do the same thing. If they agree on something, it gets sent to the president, and the president then decides whether or not to sign it into law. And the American Families United Act is one of those things we want to talk to you about today.
Así es, entonces, bueno, obviamente después de 10 años de DACA, creo que también hay mucha frustración, porque si bien hemos visto cosas muy buenas, no es lo que la gente esperaba. Entonces la abogada piensa que, por ejemplo, la canción de Adele, cada vez que la escucha se llama Easy on Me, ella solamente puede pensar en esta situación que hay con los Dreamers, con las personas que tienen DACA, que no tienen un camino a la ciudadanía, a la residencia y tampoco es que puedan volver a sus países de origen. Entonces, el otro tópico del que queremos hablar hoy es de lo que se está escuchando sobre American Families United Act, el acto o la ley de las familias americanas unidas. Y bueno, como defensores o personas que apoyan a la ley de inmigración, obviamente queremos creer que este es un buen camino. Sin embargo, después de haber visto situaciones como las de DACA, tenemos que tener bien en cuenta que tenemos que trabajar en esto. Estas leyes básicamente lo que se hacen es que se construyen y los senadores y todas las autoridades hablan y se ponen de acuerdo en ellas. Cuando se pongan de acuerdo es enviada al presidente, quien una vez la firma y se pone en acción. Entonces, hoy vamos a estar hablando también de este acto un poquito y pues obviamente cómo se relaciona con DACA.
Okay, so the easiest way to describe what this law is to talk about the 10-year cancellation of removal and compare and contrast, because I think some people may already know about that. So let's start if you're in removal proceedings and you can show that you've been in the United States for at least 10 years and you have a kid or a spouse or a parent who has status. Maybe they got a green card, maybe they're a US citizen, kid, parent, spouse, okay? And you can show that if you're removed, it's going to cause them a lot of problems. It's not going to cause you problems, it's going to cause them problems. And we don't want to cause problems and hardship. The tricky, or the legal word, I guess, not tricky, the legal word is hardship. The immigration judge can cancel your removal. The judge can say, you know what, I believe you should not be here and I'm going to order you removed. But I'm going to, at the same time, I'm going to cancel it and have mercy on your family members, because if I remove you, it's going to cause them hardship. So I'm going to cancel your removal. And then there's a quota. You have to wait several years right now. You then get your green card. Once you're placed in the line for everybody who's had their removal canceled, you get to move your way forward in the line. And that's how right now you can get your removal canceled. You can get some type of relief if you have a family member who has hardship, that they will suffer hardship if you are removed.
Exacto. Entonces, bueno, primero, el primer punto que vamos a tomar es la cancelación, bueno, un término que se llama cancelación de la deportación. Y lo que básicamente es este proceso es que dice que si tú tienes una orden de deportación, pero puedes demostrar que has estado 10 años, los 10 años previos en los Estados Unidos, y además tienes un familiar con estatus, esto quiere decir residencia, green card o un ciudadano, que sea tus padres, tu esposo o esposa o tus hijos, básicamente basado en hardship, que es un término legal que podría traducirse como sufrimiento, basado en el sufrimiento que tu ausencia puede provocarles a ellos. Un juez puede decir, ok, yo sé que yo te tengo que deportar, y en ese mismo como proceso cancelar esa deportación y ponerte en una línea, en una fila muy larga para que eventualmente obtengas un alivio migratorio. y puedas obtener tus documentos. Entonces, estas son las condiciones de esta situación y básicamente es algo que existe el día de hoy y está basado en este hardship, sufrimiento.
Okay, thank you. By contrast, if we were to go forward with this new American Families United Act, the government, rather than an immigration judge, the US government, Department of Homeland Security, the Attorney General, so usually government attorneys, prosecutors would be what I would call them, can make the decision to say, you know what, this person, their family member is going to suffer hardship if we deport and put into removal proceedings this person. So let's just go ahead and give them relief. So instead of having to go through this long process through the immigration court and tie up cases there that take years and years, and then you have to wait for the quota, this would bypass it and give the government attorney a lot of leeway on making decisions about whether or not this person should qualify for this benefit. I think this is fantastic because it will allow government attorneys to exercise their discretion. And, you know, we have a former government attorney who works in the office as one of our attorneys now, Cindy. So you can imagine she's with the government for 14 years and she has a huge heart. And it's not that immigration judges don't have huge hearts. They just need to get through cases faster. So when we have a government attorney, we're splitting the caseload among hundreds of government attorneys. You're going to have a lot less tired people who are much more willing to read through things and exercise discretion to help U.S. citizens. So this law would be amazing if we were able to see it passed.
Ok, entonces, bueno, básicamente lo que quiere, si esta ley llegara a ser posible, lo que haría es que le daría el poder a los abogados del gobierno de utilizar su discreción para hacer como una línea rápida a estas personas y darles ese beneficio, en lugar de que tengan que llegar después de años y años a la Corte de Inmigración y esperar en la línea hasta que se les pueda dar un beneficio y pues básicamente podría hacer las líneas mucho más cortas, le daría el poder y la discreción a todos estos abogados del gobierno y eso haría las cosas mucho más fáciles porque no es que los abogados o los jueces de inmigración no tengan el corazón para revisar los casos, pero es que tienen mucho trabajo, hay mucho retraso. Entonces, por ejemplo, nosotros tenemos en el equipo a alguien que está trabajando con nosotros, Cindy, ella solía ser una abogada en el gobierno y pues obviamente ella tenía o tendría la posibilidad de compartir esa carga de trabajo con todos los otros abogados, quienes podrían ejercitar este criterio, revisar caso a caso, ver, dar tiempo de leer y entonces hacer este proceso mucho más fácil. Si esto fuera así, sería una fantástica ley, sería una fantástica ayuda para todas las personas que están en este proceso.
And a lot of times I think that we get really saturated when we hear about immigration law, call your senator, do this, do that. And here's the thing. We need to call our senator about gun violence. We need to call our senator about marriage rights. We need to call our senator about women's rights. This is part of the responsibility of being a U.S. citizen. It's a responsibility. It's a benefit, but it's also a responsibility. So our responsibility is, I don't want to live in a shitty country. I don't want to live in a shitty country that doesn't honor people. That's what I want. I love my country. I think it's amazing. And the only way for me to make sure that it stays amazing and not shitty is for me to contact my senator. So when you see this type of stuff come up, ask yourself, do I want to see this meaningful change happen? Am I tired of seeing my neighbors and my friends and my families have family members torn apart? Am I tired of seeing people live two lives? One where they're stuck here and their heart's stuck somewhere else where they really want to be. And you hold the key. You hold the key to unlocking their future in so many respects. So if you see that this is something that's going to come through, call your senator, write your senator, text your senator, hustle your senator, because this is someone who works for you. You may be a U.S. citizen for 4 days, 24 hours, 30 minutes, and you have the same footing as someone who was born here. you have the responsibility of making our country amazing. And you get to do that with this immense responsibility of advocating for our brothers and sisters who need it.
Así es. Entonces, por ejemplo, creo que a veces hay mucho ruido y hay mucho cansancio en esto de llama a tu senador, ponte en contacto con las autoridades, porque bueno, es ponte en contacto con sus senadores sobre el control de las armas, sobre los derechos para casarse, sobre los derechos de las mujeres. Entonces, hay muchas cosas por las que tenemos que hacer esto. Sin embargo, tenemos que considerar que tenemos que hacer de este país un país mejor, y no solo para nosotros, sino para todas las personas que viven aquí. Y es un país increíble y queremos que siga siendo increíble, pero para que eso suceda, tenemos que tomar el beneficio de ser un ciudadano, pero también la responsabilidad. Entonces, este tipo de leyes van a hacer de este país un lugar mejor, porque van a evitar que familias, amigos, hermanos, nuestros vecinos sigan o dejen más bien de sufrir la separación familiar. Entonces, es una responsabilidad muy importante que tenemos, y este es el tipo de cosas en los que tenemos que involucrarnos. Los senadores trabajan para el pueblo americano, y así tengas 30 minutos, 4 días, 5 años, un año, meses de ser ciudadano, tienes el mismo derecho y la misma responsabilidad que las personas que nacieron aquí. Entonces, tenemos que apoyar a nuestros hermanos y hermanas que están pasando por un proceso de inmigración, y este proceso, esta ley, esta oportunidad de cambiar la historia es uno de esos momentos en los que hay que decidir hacer de este país un país mejor para todos.
Okay, I love it. Sarah, thank you so much. We've talked about DACA. It's been very educational, 25 minutes. We've talked about DACA, where it came from, where it's been for 10 years, and then maybe what's on the horizon, which is the American Families United Act. What we have in store for us, we don't know, but we know the only way forward is we have to vote, and we have to show up.
Así es, entonces muchas gracias a todos. Fue un video educativo un poco largo. Hablamos de DACA, de dónde viene, a dónde va posiblemente, qué ha pasado con él, pero también hablamos del futuro, que puede ser quizá el acto de las familias americanas unidas. Entonces tenemos que estar muy al pendiente de esto, estamos esperanzados, tenemos que tener esa responsabilidad y escribirle, textearle, mandarle mensajes a las autoridades. Queremos ver más leyes como estas cambiar la vida de muchísimas personas.
I love it. Thank you so, so much, Sarah. I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you guys have any questions, please send us a message, because we were always online. So send us a message right here on Facebook.
Así es, gracias a todos por vernos. Si tienen mensajes, si tienen preguntas, por favor no olviden, estamos siempre listos para contestar sus mensajes. Gracias.
Adiós.